Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Claret Blue Podcast. I'm Matt Kendrick and this week we're joined by Alex Butler, Big Al. Thanks first of all. We'll give you a little bit of context about Big Al. So Al was, I've checked this off camera, it's a masseur, not a masseuse, so I've learned something today. A masseuse is the female version. I'm not sure how many people, well, I think people will know you because there's quite a presence about you, but you're at Villa from 2007 to 2020.
Yeah.
What we're going to do today is take you on a bit of a trip down memory lane, how you got into the profession, your time at Villa, a slight departure from that profession to tell us what you're doing now.
Yeah.
But first of all, I just wanted to thank you for letting us, inviting us into your man cave. So
you're welcome. You're welcome. I thought, we can have a little beer afterwards maybe. But yeah, it's kind of lockdown project. A friend of mine who started his own carpenter business said, was looking for things to do. And I thought, well, I've always wanted a pub, so let's just get it done.
Oh, it's perfect. It's very welcoming. We've got one of your bulldogs.
One of my dogs is here, yeah, so she'll probably chirp in with some opinions in a minute.
She'll probably stroll around. Is she a Villa fan? I know you're an Albion fan, but we'll try and gloss over that. Is she Villa? Or?
I'm not too sure what she is. She's from Poland originally, so she's probably got a bit
Cash fan then. There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, mate.
So we're going to start. I'm going to try and take this chronologically. By the time Dan edits it, who knows which order it'll be in. But why was that your original choice of profession? How did it come about?
It was weird, really. I had I'd done a year of A levels, and it wasn't for me. And then I did a year at North Birmingham College, as it was then, doing something completely different. And then that course wasn't for me. And then I just ran into a friend. I was walking up to the Towers pub on the Walsall Road. I was walking to my shift and I ran into him and I said, "Oh, what are you up to now?" And he says, I'm going to do this sports massage course at North Birmingham. It was one of those courses because it's just so hands-on, obviously, and so physical. That's how I learn. I learn by doing rather than sitting there being preached at. And I just got into it and that was it. I thought, right, this is me. I don't know. I never knew where it'd end up, but I was enjoying doing it at the time, and it just kind of escalated from there.
And had you always been a kind of football and sports fan?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was never this athlete that you see before you today. I was.
You and me both.
I actually used to run around a bit, and I played kind of semi-pro younger. When I was younger, and because I knew that I was never going to be good enough to carry that on, I kind of always wanted to be within the sport still. I always wanted to find a way to be part of football. I didn't fancy the 4 or 5 years to learn being a physio, and I thought, well, maybe being a sports masseur is the way forward, because at the time it was 2001, I think it was either 2000 or 2001 when I started that course, and there wasn't really anyone around in football doing that. There was only maybe one or two. Especially full-time employed, you players would have to either get the physio to give them a massage, which physios hate doing, or they'd have to go and seek someone out privately. Yeah. So I thought it was a good way to exploit the kind of little loophole there. So I could get in, and having a bit of a football background anyway, I thought it would fit quite nicely. So luckily it worked out.
So I always apologise to guests on this podcast who have rich and varied kind of backstories. There's lots of stories, I'm sure, from your time at Walsall. Just in a nutshell, because we want to talk as much Villa as we can. Mm-hmm. Just give us. So you've done the qualification. Where was your first kind of opportunity, and how did that lead you into becoming a Villa eventually?
My first gig was at Walsall. Really, I think I just qualified, and I just blanket CV'd all the clubs really and see who would took a bite. And Walsall said, "Yeah, look, we could do with you, but obviously we've got no money." And I went, "Don't care. I'll work for free. I'll do a couple of days here and there, maybe a Monday after the weekend if you've got a midweek getting." And that was a way of just getting networking, really. It's just a way of getting to know people in the game and getting on with them. It gives you experience as well. So if another club had a job coming up, you could say, "I've got experience, I've worked at Walsall." And then luckily the physio at Walsall at the time, he ended up leaving to become the fitness coach at Wolves. I kept in touch with him. I got in touch with him just before their playoff final. And I said, "Look, if you need me leading up to the final, let me know." And he just went, we don't want to bring any new faces in. We don't want to upset the apple cart. But look, there's a chance if we get promoted that there'll be something there. And then as soon as they got promoted, it was straight on the phone, texting saying, look, brilliant, well done, congratulations, let me know if you need me. And then literally, about 2 weeks before the lads were back at Wolves for pre-season, I got a text and a phone call and says, come meet the gaffer, come meet the physio, and then we'll have a chat and go from there. And then I was there for 3 years, and it was bloody hard work because there was only me, and you're dealing with really big names in the game at that time: Paul Ince, Dennis Irwin, Mark Kennedy, Paul Butler, Kenny Miller, Nathan Blake, people like that. And as well as doing the first team, I was doing the reserves as well. So I was doing 4 or 5 games a week. But you're 20, 21 years old, you don't care. And then Ince got the job at Macclesfield. So I went to Mactown with Ince, and then he went to MK Dons, and then went to MK. And I was only at MK for a couple of months before the Villa job come up. And then Paul Lake, who was the physio at Macclesfield, phoned me and said, I've just spoke to Alan Smith, the physio at Villa. They're looking for someone. Do you fancy it? And I went, yes. Because it's the Villa, it's massive, it's Premier League, back in Birmingham. It's a no-brainer. We've got to go for it. And then same day, they called me in for an interview at Bodymore. I spoke to Alan Smith. I met the gaffer, Martin, and the doctor, Roddy. And then that was it, there and then. There you go, come and start, we'll sort it out. And then I had to get into my MK Dons tracksuit and go down and do the Carling Cup game against Sheffield United that night. And so it was it was a bit of a surreal day, but it was, that's it in a nutshell.
So in football, we talk about central defensive partnerships and strike partnerships, but there was a blossoming kind of masseur partnership there.
There was,
you and Andy Smith. Smudger and Big Al became a fixture. So was he there when you got there?
We arrived at the same time, the same season, but he was there about 3 or 4 weeks before me. There was a bit of a delay in me getting there due to just typical football politics, really. Me wanting to leave another club and having to do, the kind of notice period before joining Villa. And then, we got there and we're of a similar age. I think he's only a year above me. Obviously, I had a couple of years' experience at clubs that he was just coming into it. Yeah. And so we had that kind of relationship where we would bounce off each other all the time. I didn't need to tell him much anyway about my experiences because he used to play football himself, so he knew how to be around a football club. And if he ever needed to know anything on a massage side of it, he'd just ask a question. But he was always willing to learn anyway. And his dad, being a physio as well, and his brother being a physio in football, he knew that kind of medical background as well. So we were made for each other, really, for want of a better expression. So much so, a lot of lads we were always called by different duos names: Ant and Dec, Tom and Jerry, two Ronnies, Little and Large, Laurel and Hardy. We were always a duo. We always came together, and we used to laugh that have you ever seen Step Brothers? They interview as a pair. We'd always say we would have to interview as a pair if it ever came to it. And but we were meant to be, and we got on so well. Our families get on so well, and it was good times.
And you were saying before the camera started rolling, you say you've taken a bit of a year because you're a Brummy lad.
I am a Brummy lad.
This kind of
I've took his
slightly
accent.
northern twang because he's from a Yorkshire lad, is it?
He's from Rotherham. Yeah, he was. I think he was born in Blackpool when his dad worked at Blackpool, but then when his dad moved to Sheffield Wednesday, he was born and raised in Sheffield. So he's proper Yorkshire. And I think our room at Bodymore, it was literally just a room with me and him in it, and 2 beds and a telly for the lads to watch Sky Sports News and just chatting all day. Because we were around each other 24/7, all the time. I ended up rubbing off on me, so I've got this strange Brummy Yorkshire thing going on, and it's just, I get it all the time. Where are you from? Even my sister, she still lives in Great Bar, and she gets it all the time from her friends. Where's your brother from? Birmingham, where do you think? Yeah. He's left his mark on me, the boy.
So to the uninitiated, i.e. me,
Yeah.
What's a day in the life of a masseur at a Premier League football club? Look like?
Day in a life, we get there, you tend to get there about 8 o'clock. Lads start filtering in about 8:30, 9. We'll get there at 8. You'll probably have a bit of breakfast up in the canteen. There'll be a medical team meeting about who maybe needs what that day, what we need to look out for, where we are in the week, whether we're recovering from a game at the weekend or whether we're building up to the next game. If any of the lads have complained about something that either we need to see or whether we've noticed something that the physios or the doctor needs to see. And then just go and then crack on as soon as the lads turn up. The lads, if they need us off their own back, they'll come in, they'll write their name on a board, get an appointment time, turn up at their allotted time, hopefully. And then some lads we'd ask to see later on in the day if they were part of, say, their rehab. Yeah. And just go from there. We were always bouncing in between each other in the physio room and the massage room about who needed what. So, and then we'd go home the minute the last lad had left the building, really. So we could be there until 4, 5, or we could be gone quite early, depending on the day and depending on if everyone needed to get out. And then between us, we started off, we'd alternate reserve games as well. So one of us might have to go and travel to Sunderland away with the Resis under Kev Mack at the time it was, and then we'd deal with the Resi lads the next day as part of their recovery as well. So yeah, it'd be pretty full on, and we'd obviously have to travel everywhere with the boys as well. So we didn't spend a lot of time at home.
So give us this is me being pathetically ignorant, but
you're fine.
kind of my limited experience of massage would be, I don't know, the dim lights, the whale music, the
none
candles.
of that.
I can't imagine much of that going on in the basement of Bodymore.
No, not at all, not at all. There's a couple of lads that would like it quiet. They'd like their own little private time, should I say, mainly just to fall asleep and just relax. But lads would just come in just for a bit of banter, really. Like I say, we'd have a Sky Sports News or a game would be on in the background, depending what day it is. I'd have a lad on my bed, Smudge would have a lad on his bed. They'd be chatting and bantering amongst themselves. We'd be joining in. A couple of lads might just come in and wait and watch the telly as well. It all depends. Like, they'd always pop their head in and see who was in and go, I like him, I'll come and sit in there with him. And we'd end up, the amount of times, it was a small room, the cave. It's probably about the size of this. Yeah. But sometimes we'd end up with 7 or 8 lads squashed in, sitting on the floor, sitting on moving the computer off the desk and using the desk as a chair just to be part of this group, really, this group that we had in the cave. It was special.
Who came up with the idea of calling it the cave?
I think it was joint between me and Smudge, just because we were out of the way a little bit. It's like, come on, let's get you in the cave and we'll just we'll have a chat, the Cave of Truth.
It sounds like a kind of exclusive little kind of club.
It was,
like
we should
club.
We should have got cards to hand out to people.
I think you've described your role as not just kind of, being hands-on, but almost but being like this kind of substitute counsellor or psychologist. Is that what you kind of felt your kind of role morphed into a little bit as you went along?
Yeah, very much so, because we would have you get 3 types of lads. You get the lads that are playing that are happy. You get the lads that are injured and need a bit of a pick-me-up, and then you get the lads that aren't in the squad that aren't happy and they want to vent their feelings, really. And you would just listen to lads, because a lot of the time lads just need to get stuff off their chest. I know there's a huge thing about men's mental health and asking, don't be afraid to talk. But in our room, in our cave, no one was afraid to talk. Yeah. We'd listen to the lads and we'd give them our honest opinion, and they always felt better afterwards. I think it was just nice to talk to people, and we always reminded them that it could be worse. They could be a masseur.
Do you think sometimes that because the Premier League footballers are, turn up in flash sports cars, and all the disposable income you could want, do you think sometimes, like, society thinks, what are they moaning about and what are they worried about? So.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people will see that saying, how could you be depressed? You're on 50 grand a week, but it comes with different pressures. Yeah. And I think if you were in that situation, And you could feel the same. You could be just going through a bad period. You're not playing well. Maybe the fans are on you a little bit. And it can get to you. You're human at the end of the day. So the lads would need an arm around the shoulder sometimes, just a little pick me up, a little chat. And they always left our room knowing that they felt loved by us and that we were there for them, and they could trust us not to go and spread rumours. Go, oh, you never guess about so and so. We would never do anything like that. They knew that what they said to us would stay with us, and it's how you build up a trust. And then over time, you get more lads coming through. Sometimes you get the lads that would never talk to you or kept themselves to themselves, but eventually we all got them. We got them dragged in.
Just asking you a serious question about the pressures of professional football. And listen to one of your dogs. Which one, is that one Millie or is that one?
No, that's Daisy.
That's Daisy.
Yeah.
You were telling me earlier, was it Daisy who you managed to inherit from Chris Hurd?
Chris Hurd, yeah. He was away. I think he was in Australia playing football, and his family was still over here. And his wife at the time had just had their second, and she was struggling to juggle the two kids, and Daisy's a handful. And our boy, our old staffy Chuck, he was getting on a bit, and we thought, well, if we get him a little friend, we might get a few more months out of him. And she came along and just took over basically, and she's been here ever since.
I think her ears are burning there.
I know she knows.
That is Daisy who's snoring her head off, not me. Let's go back to 2007.
Yeah.
And you've arrived, and I'm just trying to think from memory. So Martin O'Neill's the manager, a strong personality in himself, and you've got people like Petrov, Caru's probably just got there. You've got Gabby. What's it like? Kind of like a lad from Great Bar, kind of mixing with these Premier League superstars.
It was for me. It was okay because, like I say, my first season at Wolves, I had all these big names like Paul Ince, Dennis Irwin, people that had played the game and won a lot of things and played at big clubs, Liverpool, Inter Milan, Man United. And so I wasn't really overawed by names as such, and it helped that I think Curtis Davies had just joined, and I knew Kurt from West Brom. And so as soon as I walked in and saw Kurt, he was, oh bloody hell, you're following me. And I went, I'm really sorry, but it was nice to see a friendly face there already. And then Nigel Reo-Coker was actually the first lad to come and introduce himself to me, because when I went in, it was October international break, so there wasn't a lot of lads there. So I kind of snuck in under the radar really, and didn't. There was only really the young lads there, like Kev Mack's group that time, and obviously the lads that didn't go to internationals. So it seemed weird to kind of be at a local club, because living in Great Bar, just off the Walsall Road, you can see Villa Park from the top of the hill. So even though I didn't grow up a Villa fan, seeing that then, you know what it means to the city, and you used to go to like Euro 96 games, and you always wanted to play down there, and school football finals were played there. We used to play the semis at Bodymore, and being at clubs growing up, you always had that kind of association. And so to being at that massive club and seeing that badge and seeing the lads that were there, and it was just a great place to be. It was you've come from a step where less than a year ago I was at Macclesfield Town, who were bottom of the Football League, and we were trying to stay in the Football League, to then going to MK Dons for a little bit, who were at the other end of League Two, who had the better players and the money, to then going bang straight back into the Premier League and looking for Europe and maybe going on cup runs and things like that. It was a massive step up for me personally and professionally, but it was where I felt it was the right time for me to be there.
So what was your relationship with Martin O'Neill like? Because I've seen him from a press point of view, and he can, and we've had him on the podcast in recent months, and he can be a brilliant storyteller, but get the wrong side of him, and then you could kind of fear for your life.
Yeah, there is a bit of that school teacher mentality. I think he was always great with us. He appreciated everything you did for the club. He knew how hard you worked, and it goes back to me saying about just putting an arm around the lads, and he would come and do that to you if we were in a very intense period of games, say over Christmas in January. he would come up to you and put his arm around you and say, look, I just want to thank you for the job that you're doing, for you're keeping us going. Like, I really, really appreciate it. It means so much to me that you're working so hard for the lads. And then you'd walk out floating on air. You'd be just like, oh my God, this is the best day ever, even though you're physically exhausted. But he was always great. He was always great with us. He would look after you. We'd have quiz nights in hotels, which got really intense, shall we say.
Just the competitive streak.
It was a competitiveness between coaches. You know, you had the gaffer Martin, who was one team coach, and then Robbo was the other team coach, the other team like coach captain, and it just got. It got really intense, those quiz nights, and but he'd look after you. He would, you know, at Christmas he'd get everyone at Bodymore together for a dinner and some drinks at the Belfry. He'd take you golfing. He'd pay for everyone to go golfing with him. He'd go, right, lads, you've worked so hard. Come on, we're going for a golf day. And he'd always look after you. And that's a man management skill that I think is kind of missing maybe in modern football at the minute, just because it was, if you work hard for a manager and they recognise it and they look after you, you're going to keep on working hard for them. And he was brilliant. You knew not to cross him.
Yeah.
And the lads knew not to cross him, because the attitude was that if you win on Saturday, we'll do it your way, but if you don't win, we'll do it my way. And the lads never wanted to do it the gaffer's way. So he got the best out of them, and everyone loved that time, especially around the club. Everyone was pulling the same way, and it was all because of how he brought everyone together, and he trusted you. And even though we were quite young, me and Smudge, he trusted you to be an adult.
Yeah.
He let you go and be an adult. That's not necessarily been the case with other managers I've worked with, not just at Villa, but at other clubs. But he trusted you, and that trust goes a long, long way.
Yeah. You just mentioning the kind of quizzes and stuff like that just got me thinking. Did you and the other backroom staff ever have to do the old initiation? You know, the getting the karaoke song and stuff.
Yeah, the singing. Yeah, we had to do that. We had to do that in my first year. I'd only been there a few months, but we went to Marbella for a winter break, and it must have been February or March. I can't remember what it was. But because all the January signings were there, and we were up in the hills somewhere just outside Marbella, and the lads were training first thing in the morning because of the heat, and then they were allowed to go and play golf. Like, the staff would go and play golf. It was just a bit of a wind down. Come on, lads! And then the last evening, I think we all went out to a restaurant, and we all had this giant table in this one room. And we knew what was coming. We knew it was coming because Gareth GB, he was winding everyone up, saying, "Yeah, everyone knew's got to do it." And we're like, "What am I going to sing here?" And then so we had to do it in the middle of this restaurant. And there was a couple of, I think there was a Hindu there. There was a couple of locals that were there that didn't know going on, because all of a sudden there's like 40 lads that are having to sing in front of each other, and it was just crazy. If you really want to know what I sang,
go on.
I sang "I'm a Little Teapot." I had nothing else in my brain apart from "I'm a Little Teapot."
Let's get on the table and do it and all that.
Yeah. Stand in a chair in the middle of this restaurant. Smudger went before me, and he was really good. He did Firestarter from the Prodigy, and he was throwing himself about, and his hair was everywhere. And I was like, I don't know how to follow that. So I'm just going to be an idiot. I'm just going to be daft. And I could tell by the gaffer's face he wasn't too happy, but I got a really good reaction from the lads, so he let me get away with it. I think the worst one I saw was a guy called Andrew Stone, who came in under Di Matteo. I think he was his analysis guy, and he made this big fuss about the lads staying after dinner to hear his initiation song, and within 3 seconds he was getting booed off, and bread rolls and napkins were being thrown at him. So I think that's probably the worst one.
I mean, it's supposed to be a bit of an obvious question, but he's been part of that backroom team as close to being a professional footballer as you can be, really, in terms of the camaraderie and the vibe around the place.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because at the end of the day, you're working towards a win.
Yeah.
You're working towards that 3 points on the Saturday. Yeah. You have to do your part to get the lads ready. And when you win, it's a massive relief. You're like, yeah, I've worked hard this week. We've got we've got the win. We've helped the lads. We've done our bit to get the lads prepared for them to do their bits, and then of course when you're losing, you're in a bit of a bad run. You've not changed your kind of work mentality and how you do things, but then people start looking at other areas and people start digging out about, where are we going wrong, or maybe it's your fault, but it's not really. We're just in a bad run. So it is. You're all pulling to that 3 points at the end of the week. So without being able to run about and kick a ball and have the skills to do it, it's the closest, the next best thing. Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of managers and a lot of ex-players go into coaching, because they need that that fix.
Probably jump all over the place with this, but
that's right.
Stilly and Petrov's in my mind at the moment, because you and Smudge, you did the bike charity kind of bike ride, didn't you?
Yeah, we did, yeah.
What was it like, without being too kind of doom and gloom about it, because I know it's had a positive outcome ultimately, but what was it like at that time? 'Cause it'd have been under McLeish, wouldn't it? And it'd have been the Arsenal game away, I think, where I don't think Villa as a team played particularly well, and Stan fell below his standards. Yeah. Kind of what just give us a flavour of what it was like and how everybody pulled together to deal with that.
Yeah, it was strange. Like you say, we're playing Arsenal away, and he was feeling a little bit rough leading up to the game. But being the professional that he is, I'm not letting the lads down. I've got the armband. I need to go out and do it. And then at half time, I remember him changing his full kit, but just going, I just don't feel I can go out there. But some of the lads were like, look, we need you, and he would never let the lads down. He'd never let the club down. So he went out and finished the game, and then for the rest of the week, then he was kind of coming in and doing bits and bobs and recovering. And then I think he found out the day before. I think we played Chelsea at home the week after, and he found out like the day before the game, and it just hit everyone. And we were just. It's sad when you hear about someone becoming ill anyway, but when someone's so close to you, and he's the captain of the football club, but he's also a friend as well. He was there the same time as us from day one. And again, he was always good to us. We always worked hard for him. We'd go around his house. I'd go around his house and work with him. If you didn't have time during the day at the training ground, you get to know his family, you get to know his kids, and you're just heartbroken for him, but also his family. But he always had this like positive mindset on things, and he came in to watch that Chelsea game, and despite going through everything, he was quite positive. He was bubbly around the lads. He didn't. We were saying, Stan, and he was like, come on, we're all right. We got a game. We got to go out, and we got to. I think we were 2-0 down quite quick, but then we pulled it back to 2 each, and I think we ended up getting done 4-2, but. Just having him there for that game and just seeing his positive outlook on it, that he's like, look, I'm going to beat all this, and you need to not worry about me, not think about me. We need to go and think about the club and go and get results. And because we weren't doing well that season anyway, we needed to obviously pull our finger out a little bit and start winning games. But it was actually during that game where me and Smudge came up with the idea for the cycle that we did for him, because we were like, well, what can we do just to give him something to think about, maybe raise a few quid for charity, and then it was the usual, maybe we should do a run, and then I'm like, this doesn't run. So then we were like, well, what about a bike ride? And I said, yeah, a bike ride would be quite good. Where can we do it from? Well, should we do the whole Land's End to John O'Groats thing? That's a bit far. I don't think we'll get the days off. And we'll go, well, why don't we link the two clubs? Why don't we link Celtic and Villa? Because Celtic will be all over it. Yeah. Villa will be all over it. The fans of both clubs are fantastic. Yeah. They support Stan. You can see the outpouring and love and emotion for him anyway. Why don't we just do that? And then it slowly escalated from there. We got Lorna, who was the player liaison at the time, who was just incredible, and she thought it was fantastic. We got the permission from the club. We got in contact with the charity that Jeff Thomas was associated with at the time. They jumped on board. They were all over it. And it went from there. And I think it was good to just give Stan something silly like that to focus on, because he was seeing the training videos of me struggling to trying to get up a hill and things like that, and he just loved seeing the messages. He loved seeing the money coming in that we were raising, especially seeing all the donations from the lads. And around the world of football as well, there was lots of lads that we didn't know from other clubs. We hadn't met JT at that time, but JT had donated for the rest of that season. We were seeing things like, we were seeing our advert in, say, Tottenham's programme. We go Tottenham away, and it was in there, and you'd see the money going up during the game, and you know, the clapping at 19 minutes. It was amazing to see the whole world of football come together for him, to let him know that everyone was thinking of him. But for that to come out of a conversation that during the game, like, we should go and do something for him, because we loved him, and we do love him, and we wanted him to know how much we loved him by doing something that he wouldn't necessarily see us ever do, especially me being active. So,
how much of a physical challenge was it?
It was hard. It was more mentally trying to get out on the bike and train after a full day. I mean, there'd be days where I lived at Quinton at the time, so I would cycle from Quinton to Bodymore, which is around about 20 miles. And it was tough, because you do it, feel great, go and do a full day at work, be knackered, realise your car's at home, and you've got to cycle home. So it was tough getting, but this, you knew you had to do it, because
it was on one of those massage beds. I think
I've done that many a time in my career. Don't worry about that. But it was nothing compared to the fight that he was going through, and so many other people going through. Because I remember there was one dad who got in touch with me, who was telling me about his boy who was going through the same thing, and it was the thought of them fighting their illness that would keep you going, especially when we were doing the cycle as well, because there was days where you're just seeing this hill and you're just like, oh God, I can't get up that. And then you have to get up it, and you can smell the clutch in the van burning behind you because you're just not going fast enough. It was tough. It was tough. But the adrenaline that got you through it, the messages got you through, the, again, seeing the money coming in online while you were out there was special, and that kept you going as well. But it was tough, but we knew we had to do it. We had to get there for him and for the charity, really, as well.
So over the course of your time at Villa, and you might need to pick 2 or 3 names. I know Smudge would probably be your best mate, but of the playing staff or the backroom staff, who would have been your kind of like friends for life, I suppose?
Oh, friends for life. There's a few, like, staff wise. Obviously Smudger. When we first joined, there was another young lad there called Ryan, who was like an equipment manager, if you like. He would look after all the training stuff. He'd look after the swimming pool and the stuff in the gym. Again, he was our age, so we naturally kind of stuck together. So those guys, people like Derek, who's now he was match day security for a long time, but then moved over to Bodymore, and he now travels with the team. Player wise, obviously Stan, just because we've known each other for what seems like forever. Yeah, lads I've been with at other clubs as well, like Curtis Davis. I've worked at 2 clubs with, and the young lads. I mean, the later lads that I worked with, Neil Taylor, I still talk to quite a lot. I even drove Tails up to Middlesbrough when he joined Middlesbrough the other season for 6 months. So Middlesbrough and back every day. That was an experience. But it was good fun.
In a car though, rather than a bike.
Yeah, well, yeah, true. God, I think I'd still be cycling now for the first trip if I was. And people like him, James Chester, Glenn Whelan, we get on really, really well with, but you always run into lads no matter what, and when you do, they're kind of there. You know, you get transported back to when you met them. Young lads that we obviously did a lot of time with for the reserve games, people like, you know, Kieran Clark, Andy Vyman, you know, those sorts of lads, Sharky, Mark Albrighton. When as soon as you run into them, you're best friends again, and you're back into the cave almost. You switch straight to that mentality of like, how can I be an idiot while being professional at the same time?
Did you guys ever kind of get pranked by the lads? Because we've had Barry Bannon on. I think he's a bit lowbrow this, but I think he's talking about how Jonathan Hogg once dumped him, once the football booth. We've had people like Gabby talk. Well, I think Gabby was the ringleader gluing people's trainers to the lockers and stuff like that. Yeah. Were you safe from that? Or
kind of. We'd have the odd ones when the lads were bored pre-seasons. There'd be a knock at your door. You'd open the door, and a bin full of water comes and goes everywhere. And you just
name names.
I honestly don't know who did that, but I've got a feeling it might have been. I got a feeling it might be Lansbury. Because he was a bit like that, but it could have been any of them. Yeah. It could have been any of them. I think the lads broke into my room, and when was it? I think it was the last pre-season under Steve Bruce when we were in Portugal. I think on the last night while I was working, I didn't know until the next day they come in the room and cut all my kit up. So all my sleeves and my legs were missing from my tracksuit, and they were expecting me to just walk in the airport like that, but I used the training kit instead, so I think they were a bit disappointed. Things like that, and then sometimes you'd be working and there'd be a little nozzle of a fire extinguisher coming through a door and getting you. But apart from that, I think we were relatively safe because I think some of the lads knew that we'd come back at them harder. And it would probably really escalate. So we had a kind of a mutual understanding that if you don't come for me, I'm not coming for you.
I mean, I don't want you to tell bad stories or negative stories about it. But what would have been of those little mini eras? What would have been you at your kind of happiest?
Do you know what? It's difficult. I think under Martin O'Neill was our best period because not only were we were doing well, we were getting to finals and just missing out on winning finals, but we were also doing European tours. We were winning seemed like every week. I think we went for a period where we didn't lose an away game for like a year or something. And so probably that really, because we went into every single game, even if you were playing Man U, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, you went into every game thinking we're going to get something here. Yeah. There was never once that you thought I think we'll get turned over. Yeah. So probably that really. And I know there's a lot of controversy from the fans for this, but Brucey was similar in that respect. He was a great man management. He loved you for working hard for the boys. So those two times were probably my happiest because you felt part of it more so than maybe other times with so many changes.
So in other managers, not naming names, but in other managers, you're fulfilling a function, but with those kind of, I think it's fair to say, with those kind of old school managers, they value the team ethic and everybody being involved.
And I think it's because they got to know you a lot more. They were there a bit longer, and they got to know you as a person and what you did for the club. Yeah, and we couldn't get our head around it one day because I think we 7 or 8 years, me and Sorgen, we counted how many managers we've been through. I think we were on like 11. Including caretakers, and we were like, how can you build a relationship with managers are coming in not knowing who any of us are, probably don't trust you because you've seen 8 managers off already, and then they go as well, and then another guy comes in, so you were always on your toes a little bit. You were always like, you never knew where you stood. But when we did have periods of stability under O'Neill, under Brucey, and then Dean at the end, it was you kind of knew where you were a little bit, and you could kind of just get on with doing your job. Whereas as other times you were felt, well, if I'm not seeing it, I'm all right. And, you kind of wanted to take a step back a little bit because you just didn't want to, I don't know, not be in the way, but you didn't know where you stood with people. So because they
speak when you're spoken to,
and a lot of, and not so much managers, but you get their coaches would come in and they wouldn't really take the time to get to know you either. So you were just like, you didn't know where you were with them. Apart from Ray Wilkins, who was the nicest man in the world. And he would just, again, like an old pro, come and sit in your room and have a chat and genuinely wanted to know about you and your family and how long you'd been at the club and people you knew in the game and everything. And he was fantastic. But it was a difficult period because you never knew you just didn't know how long a manager was going to be at that club for.
I mean, I don't know whether these things still exist, and if they do, they probably do it in kind of private members clubs and people's houses. But like the kind of parties and stuff like that, was there any kind of, were you part of that and the kind of like fancy dress at Christmas and all that kind of thing?
With the lads,
yeah,
on 1 or 2 occasions, nothing. the lads would see you as part of their group.
Yeah.
But then there's a fine line between staff and players. And we were the bridge between the two almost. Like I remember one conversation with a manager who wanted to know, he was a little bit paranoid, shall we say, and he wanted to know where our loyalties were. And I was like, well, I'm loyal to the club. Because, yeah, but you get on too well with the players. And I'm like, yeah, but I have to. Yeah. It's my job to get on with the players, because if I don't get on with them, they don't come and see me. And if they don't come and see me, then I can't do my job. Yeah. And so I need them to get on with me. But you have to kind of be professional. Sometimes we were seen as too much like being with the lads on the staff side of it, and then some of the lads would think you were too much of a staff member. So we were kind of always caught between the two, but the lads majority of the time they saw us as one of them, so they wanted us to go out with them at Christmas and things like that. But then the staff, as a group, we were just as bad, and we'd have our own little fancy dress Christmas dues as well. So yeah, they were always around. Lads would take themselves out. Yeah. That's where Stan was so good when he was captain, because he'd rent out like a restaurant for all the lads and the wives to get together. He says, we need a bit of togetherness. Let's go out and do it. And that's what was needed. But I think you don't really see that a lot in modern football, sadly. But it was always good to see that camaraderie. But we didn't get sucked in that many times. Yeah.
Kind of fast forwarding a little bit. I think I asked you this before we started. You'd be comfortable talking about kind of when you got COVID, which would have been when around kind of, would that have been 2020, about kind of springtime?
It was March 2020, so it was the week of the Leicester game. Right. We got done 4 at Leicester.
So that'd have been the last game before the lockdown.
Before the lockdown, yeah. So we were due to play Chelsea on the Saturday, and then games started getting called off on the Friday. Yeah. And it was kind of the Friday evening when I started to feel a little bit unwell.
Was that so? That was the Friday before the Chelsea game.
The Chelsea game, and the Chelsea game hadn't even been called off yet.
Was that due to be away or at home?
I think it was at home.
Was it?
Yeah.
So you're feeling unwell that day?
Yeah, a little bit later on during the day, like not so much during the day, but a little later in the evening or the late afternoon, I started to feel not great. And my mum. We were at a funeral on the Wednesday, and my mum started feeling ill on the Thursday. So then when I started feeling bad on the Friday, I'm like, I wonder if we all just picked something. Obviously, COVID was going around, so we were hoping it wasn't that. Yeah. And then come Saturday morning, I was like, I think I'm going to need to go and stay with my mum. I just want to stay away from home. I don't want to be around my family, with the little one. I don't want them to be poorly. And my mum and dad are already ill, so I think I'll just go and stay with them. So that was on the Saturday. Come Monday night, I was in hospital with sepsis because I had like a 42-degree temperature, and they treated me for sepsis and sent me home the next day. And then it just developed into like COVID pneumonia, and I went back into hospital on the Friday. So a week later, after I started feeling ill, and then was in there for 10 or 12 days, I think. And obviously, being March 2020, no one knew how to treat this thing yet. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what drugs were going to work. They were just trying to treat symptoms, really, and hope for the best. And so, it was touch and go, to put it politely. Yeah. It was mad. And
kind of what, early 40s now, late 30s.
So I would have been 38. Yeah, 38 at the time, yeah.
And how's that without being too morbid about it, how's that to deal as a kind of as a young dad with your family? And
I think that was the biggest worry, really, because I can handle being ill and dealing with it. I don't know whether it was, I still don't know to this day whether it's because they knew I'd worked for Villa, because when you go into hospital the first time with COVID, they want to know exactly where you've been. They need to pinpoint things to try and find out. So I'm like, right, I work for Villa. We played Leicester. I think the day after the Leicester game, they came out and said, we had 2 or 3 that have got it. So we were like, cheers. I was put in a private room away from everyone, and it was either because I worked for Villa or because I was that bad they didn't want anyone else seeing someone so young struggling so badly with it. So I think it was a little bit of a mixture of the two. But then when you're there and you're just trying to recover and you can't, and there's not a lot of hospital staff around because they're ill. When you're hearing all the alarms of people basically just hitting the deck and dying, It's getting quite scary because my mum was on the same ward.
Right.
So I went in on the same day as my mum. She was on the main ward with everyone. And her being a nurse, she knew the ins and outs. And she was trying to pull the young nurses to one side and say, look, you're okay. Keep going, keep going. So she had that nurse mentality. And I'm trying to text my mum saying, is anyone around? Because, you know, I need this, that, or the other. And it was weird. And the most scary thought was the longer I was in hospital, the more I was missing at home. The more the little one starts asking questions, where's Dad? And I'm just trying to lie to her and say, I'm away with work. Yeah. And that's all it was. I'm away with work. I'm away with work, and hoping that we got better and could come home. But it was scary, especially the one night when the surgeon came in, not the surgeon, the
specialist.
Yeah. And she came in and said, look, we're worried about you. We think we might have to take over your breathing. So basically we're going to put you in a coma and do your breathing for you until you hopefully get better. And that was the time where I thought, that's it, you know. And he was like, oh, and so it's like, I text my dad, said, because he I don't know how, shook it off after 3 days. I'm like, thanks for that. Yeah, he's 72 now. And I was just like, got rid of it like that. And it was like, Dad, like, you know, I need you to do this, and this for me.
You're almost planning your farewells,
really? Yeah, I was. Like, it was text home. This is happening. Don't know what's going to happen. You know, saying your goodbyes almost. And then they brought my mum in to, like, come and see me, because as soon as my mum found out, oh, he's going into a coma, she knows the risks. She's gone, oh, no. And she came in. She looked grey. And she looked like that John Major puppet from Spitting Image, that kind of grey. A, because she was ill, but B, because she knew the script. And so she almost came in trying to put a brave face on it to say her goodbyes almost. And it was mad to think that this could be it. But I felt that ill and that bad that I thought I'd actually take it now. Like, it's probably easy. It sounds morbid and horrible, but death would probably be easier, the easier option. Yeah, it was that bad. He was just like, just for a bit of a break, I'll take it. So it sounds bad, but it was true. So yeah, and then I don't know how or what, but the specialist, she said to me, she went, look, there's a bit of a queue. Being Sandwell Hospital, it's not the biggest hospital. Yeah. They haven't got a lot of equipment. She says there's a bit of a queue. There's about 4 people ahead of you to go up to intensive care to be put in this coma. So until we have enough equipment, or morbidly, until people die, we can't use any of that equipment. Yeah. So we know what we want to do with you, but we don't know how to do it yet. So they pumped me full of whatever drugs they gave me, and it was fantastic. And I remember just having the weirdest fever dream during that night. I remember passing out at one point. I remember being slapped around the face by one of the nurses to bring me round, and I couldn't do anything about it because I was so weak and so ill. Yeah. But it was a real wake up for me. And then so I was having this weird fever dreams throughout the night from whatever they injected me with. Woke up the next morning, the specialist has come in, and I've gone, so when are we going down? And I thought, right, this is going to be my last day. Like, when are we going on a coma? And she went, oh, well, you picked up overnight, like your SAT's changed a little bit, your oxygen's come up, and your heart rate's kind of settled. So we think you're going to be all right. We think we're just going to leave you here for a bit. And I went, all right. So I went, oh, that's all right. So straight away, phoned home straight away, and I was like, they think I'm going to be okay. So, and little did I know, everyone back at home.
They cleared out all your room here, you know.
I know. She was dancing for joy. She needed the space. Little did I know that night that everyone spent the whole night on the phone to each other. My sister was phoning my aunt and my cousins saying, think that's it, think he's going. Making sure everyone was okay, like putting plans in place to look after the little one in case people had to rush over and whatever. And then there's me the next morning going, oh, yeah, they say I'm all right now, so sorry about that.
False alarm.
Yeah, it's all right. We're okay. We shook it off. And then it was the next few days of just recovering. and trying to the magic number for your oxygen levels is 94%, right. And I was at like 86.
Right.
So they just saying we just need to see a 94. As soon as we see a 94, you can go home. Yeah. And that's when I was able to start functioning. I'd not showered for weeks, and I was stinking. And as soon as she said, you're not going into a coma, we think you're going to be okay, I said, look, well, can I have a shower then? Yeah. They brought in a mobile oxygen tank, and I don't know how, but I walked 5 yards to where the shower room was, and that took all the breath out of me. I've got these wires coming here and everywhere. I got oxygen pumping into me. It was the best shower ever, and it was just things like that made you kind of feel human again almost, and feel a little bit alive, and then just started watching documentaries on my phone trying to recover, and then eventually we got there, and me and my mum both went in on the same day and both came out on the same day, so we were a nice little happy ending on that one.
Brilliant. And I think I'm right in saying, was it your sister who was putting some kind of updates on social media, which prompted another example of the football family pulling together? I think there's a lot of love for you.
Oh,
that must have been well received.
It was mad. Like, again, it was that next morning, because I turned my phone off. I've given it to my mom. I says, look after that just in case. And then, so when I got that back the next day and turned it on, I'm seeing hundreds and hundreds of Twitter messages and mentions. And I'm trying to read through it all, but I'm still kind of spaced. But just to then see it, and then obviously it got picked up with the Birmingham Mail, put it in, and loads of other people see it. I've gotten people that I hadn't spoken to since school reaching out and sending, positive thoughts and everything. So again, it was great to see that football community kind of come out and reach out, because they don't know me personally. I could be I am an idiot, but I could be a really terrible human being. But they were being so nice to me, and it was nice, and that's the good side of football. That's when it brings everyone together like that. So it was nice to see so many messages, and it does it going back to when Stan was ill, seeing those messages gives you a bit of a lift. Yeah. So obviously I know it was pretty serious what I had, but he went through it for a lot longer than I did with his illness. But it's to get those messages and to know that people think about you means a lot to you in those circumstances, especially when you don't know if you're going home or not. Yeah.
Didn't some of the lads rally round as well? Did James Chester send food parcels and stuff like that?
Yeah. So once he knew I was back, Smudger, bless his heart, he set up a WhatsApp group with lads at the club, lads that had left the club, our group of friends, the ones that we love and talk to the most. He set up a group just to let lads know.
It's like the cave posse.
The cave group, like to let everyone know what the latest situation was. So when I finally got home, a couple of days later, Chesney texts me, says, "What's your address, pal?" And because the guy that lived in the apartment above him in Birmingham is the chef at Carter's in Moseley.
Oh, right, lovely.
And he said to keep their business going, they're doing food packages. So, send me your address. And then these 3 boxes turned up the next day. I think the chef actually delivered it himself. I seen a car and knocking on the door. I got a message saying, make sure you pick that up quick, because there's stuff that needs to be in the fridge. And there was steaks, and there was this, there was that, there was milk, there was eggs, and it was everything. And I'm all like, I don't know how I'm going to eat all that, but I'll give it a really good go. And so I took some stuff to Muriel, who lives next door. She lives on her own, and obviously during a pandemic, she's not been able to see her family. So I'm like, look, I'm not contagious anymore, but here's a box of food, and it's just things like that. You want to look after people, and he was good enough to look after me and send me stuff. So you want to kind of share it out a little bit. It was nice of him. It was a nice touch.
So where were you at kind of physically, emotionally, mentally to go back? Was it your decision? Did they say you've got to get back in because we've got loads of games? Or?
No, it was kind of left in my court, really. I think once I did go back, I realised that physically and mentally I wasn't ready to go back, and I should never have gone back, because it was a lot of hard work, and I was still recovering. I was still exhausted, and obviously because of lockdowns, you have to spend a lot of time away. You'd end up as like a little mini camp at, say, the Belfry before home games for 2-3 days to keep everyone in a bubble. even travelling away from home, you'd have to be in a bubble.
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't mix with certain people. And even as a masseur, it was difficult because Premier League rules stated that you were only allowed to be with lads for 15 minutes of contact at a time, which lads hated because they'd want to lie there for hours.
Yeah.
But you could only do 15 minutes, and you're there with plastic and PPE and gloves and masks, and it made everything very, very difficult. But yeah, physically and mentally, I wasn't ready to go. But I just thought that I needed, for myself, to see these games out. I needed to finish a season. In my whole career, I've only ever missed one game, and that was the birth of my daughter.
Oh, what game was it?
It was a West Ham at home. I think we lost 3-1.
You go there, they've got their excuses ready as well.
Exactly. I wasn't there. That's why we lost. So sorry, everyone. So yeah, I'd only missed one game in my whole career. I've done over 800 games. I thought, I'm not missing the rest of this season. We're bottom of the league. We need all hands to the pump to try and not only save the club, but to save people's jobs and careers. And we saw how bad it was when we lost the playoff final with people. And you know, so we finally got back. We need to see it through. So for me to just see it through was great, but looking back, I probably never should have gone back just because of how I was.
But you must have got a sense of fulfillment and achievement when Villa have gone and done it on the last day.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in a way, it wasn't really expected because we still weren't getting great results in those. Apart from beating Arsenal at home, that was probably the first time where you thought, oh, we could do this. But other clubs were losing and weren't doing well, and we were always within touching distance of other clubs, so we were just grinding away. We should have beat Everton away. We ended up drawing, but in the end it turned out as a good point. And then to get a point at West Ham, and that being enough, this kind of just the relief of everything you've been through over that season, not doing well, struggling, COVID hits, people are dying left, right and centre, people are ill, and then coming through and surviving on that last day, it was a strange old kind of feeling, really. I mean, I know people never say you should celebrate staying up from a relegation, but when everything's gone on that went on, and it's a celebration.
It was pretty unlikely given where Villa were before the lockdown to produce that turnaround.
Yeah, and you never know. You don't know how it's all ifs and buts, but you don't know where we would have been had that break not had come when it come. Because I think we probably responded better than other clubs did to that break, and then coming back into it. So yeah, I'm glad it worked out for the boys. I'm glad it worked out for people at the club and the fans, especially, just to kind of stay where they belong, really. You know, it would have been terrible to go back down the Championship again. Although the away days were good for the fans, you know, taking 6,000 everywhere. 46 games is too much, and then those 3 games at the end, just to even wind you up even more. It's too much. But the club deserves the Premier League, and I'm glad they're there.
Can I just ask you about the Dean Smith as a fella? And that kind of 10 game kind of spurt towards the playoffs. What was it like to be on the inside of that?
It was almost unheard of. It was really strange because I think we were miles off the playoffs at one point. We were missing Jack for a lot of that season. We just needed galvanising a little bit, and then once we got into a run, you could see you see everyone pulling together. We're going about pulling together with under O'Neill and everyone, but it was really surreal. But again, it went back to under O'Neill when I said that we always felt we would never lose a game. As soon as Jacko's first game back and we beat Derby, we're 4 up at half time. From then on, we never felt we could lose a game. I knew it. The exact moment I knew we were getting promoted was Rotherham away. Because we'd just beaten Sheff Wednesday on the Saturday. We were 1-0 down and then down to 10 men. Yeah,
Tyrone Mings got sent off.
In the midweek. Yeah. The gaffers made a sub, he brought Codge on. And I've never seen Codge like that. Codge was he was like a man possessed that second half. Everything came out of him. And we absolutely battered them second half. Scored 2 quick goals. And that's when I knew. I thought because if 1-0 down at half time with 10 men, you're just like, we can't lose our run at Rotherham. We've been on this great run. We've beaten really good teams. No disrespect to Rotherham, but we can't lose this game. And then as soon as we battered them second half, and straight after the game, we're going up here. No one's going to beat us. Yeah. No one's going to beat us. We just knew. We just knew we were going to do it, and we went into every game knowing that no one can touch us now.
Jack, away at Blues. Oh, what's it like actually, are you in the dugout?
No, I'm in with the Villa. Normally, for away games, we're behind the dugout. Yeah. Like clubs put a couple of rows by the dugout for away staff. Yeah, which can cause its own little troubles. But Blues, the dugouts aren't great, and the fans aren't as welcoming to us as Villa staff as other clubs. Yeah, just trying to be polite. And so whenever we played Blues, we'd go and sit with the Villa fans, because sometimes we'd see the same stewards for Villa Blue, like they bring Villa stewards in, and we go up to whoever and we go, look, listen, that front row, which is usually reserved for like the people that are with the disabled fans, if no one's using them, can we use them? We've got 4 or 5 members of staff and 2 players that aren't in the squad. Yeah, no problem. So we'd always go in with the fans, and it was brilliant. You can just see us in the corner when Gabby scored the winner of the header in the last minute back in the day. And then Jacko's goal as well. You can see when Jack jumps in, there's like me, Ollie Stevenson, Smudge, Tommy Elphick's there, young Jacob Ramsey's in there as well. There's just bodies everywhere. You see fans flying down the stairs. But fans were picking up on that, saying, oh, look at the lads in with the fans, and stuff. Things like that meant a lot, means a lot to the fans as well, seeing staff and players, we're all part of it. Yeah, we were in that run as well, and we were going through a really, really good time, and everyone was so buoyant. You knew we would do. We were doing well. Yeah. We were going to achieve something with that season and that group. It's always good to beat the Blues at St Andrews as well, isn't it? I've only ever lost once there with Villa, and that was the cup game under Houllier,
when they went and won it.
Yeah, that season. Yeah, that was the only time I'd ever lost there. Was
that a cold? I remember I was reporting on it that night. I'm sure Gabby was getting pelted with snowballs by the Blues.
Yeah, it was. It would have been like a quarter final. I think it was. So it was mid-December or somewhere, and as soon as the final whistle went, they won. They've all swarmed the pitch, and you've got chairs and flares going in between the lots of the fans and everything. And that was a little bit. It was a bit. I mean, it's a bit of a throwback to the old school days, but it was too much, because then we see our fans are in the tunnel getting stitched up.
Yeah,
it was a bit too much.
Very moody.
But I'll let them have that one, because we beat them about 58 other times.
With the Jack one though, because obviously the fella comes and punches him at the other end of the pitch. Yeah, are you seeing that? Are you aware of what's gone on there?
Yeah, we've seen it, because we've just seen this figure run up, and then we've seen Jack on the floor, and I think Ollie, the fitness coach, was the first one to see, because Ollie played with Jack in the youth team, and they're really good mates. He's gone, he's gone on Jack, that guy, is it Jack? And then you just see all the lads swarming, but then you see Jack get up, and you think it's a bit of a red rag to a bull there, because he's just going to laugh it off. He don't care. He's not hurt. Our main concern was, right, is he hurt? Yeah. No, he's not. Brilliant. He's going to score the winner today. You just knew, didn't you? You just knew he was going to do it.
In terms of Jack and Villa, again, as Villa fans, we're very parochial about it, but seeing Dean Smith and Jack Grealish as the manager and captain get us back to where we belong. Yeah. Just, and I'm conscious that I've taken up a lot of this time, but just in terms of that final then, because we'd had the disappointment of Fulham the previous year, and then we go to Derby, and was Derby a game where you thought, we've got this one as well, because Villa are in such a rich vein of form?
Personally, I've never been so affected by a loss as the Fulham game, because it was like the club was struggling. We didn't know what Dr. T was doing, and we knew lads were going to leave left, right and centre. We thought, right, well, JT is probably going to hang them up. We might lose Chesney, we might lose so-and-so, we might lose who. Where's the goals going? We haven't got no money to bring in. Are we going to have jobs? Yeah. We didn't know, and after that game, I was terrible for ages. But it took me a year to get over it, until we won the Derby game. Yeah, to get over it, because it was like, this should have happened the year before. But going into the Derby game, we'd already beaten them twice that season. We felt like we had their number, but a final being a final, you just never know. But there was something about the morning of that game where we all met for pre-match, and absolutely every single person has gone round each other. We've all high-fived. We've all had a hug. And there was just this feeling that you knew you were going to win. Yeah. It's hard to describe, because sometimes you go in game, you can be a bit nervous at a final. You think, I don't know how it's going to go, but anything could happen. But that day, we all knew we were going to win. There was something in the air that we knew. Maybe because we'd beaten them twice already that season. So I remember the day after our second leg, a few of us got together and we were watching the Leeds second leg, Leeds Derby. So we thought Leeds is going to be a really tough game. And then Derby kept scoring and we were like, we're playing Derby? We knew then, we thought, if we get Derby, we're definitely going to win. I'm not saying we wouldn't definitely have beaten Leeds, because I think we would have on the day. But knowing that we had Derby, that we were going into it far more positive, and we just knew. So
it must have felt significant that you played your part in helping Villa, having experienced Villa like as a force in the Premier League under O'Neill. And circle the plug hole, get relegated. Must be nice to know that you not only played your part in getting Villa back up to the Premier League, but keeping Villa in the Premier League. When did you know that enough was enough? Was that your decision, Alex?
No, I think it was a bit of a combination, really. I think I knew enough was enough for me when during the break, during lockdown, and then having to go back to it, because being ill and recovering and not realising how much I'd missed at home. Once I was then forced to be at home, I realised what I was missing out on. And a lot of people don't understand that you are never at home. You're always away. You leave the house at 7 a.m. It's dark when you leave, it's dark when you get home. You see your little one for 5 minutes in the morning, and just as she's getting to bed in the evening. So my relationship with her got better from me being at home. And the longer I was at home and enjoying that break and recovering, especially around the family, I was like, I'm not sure it's me anymore. I've done nearly 20 years. I feel a bit burnt out a little bit. And I wanted to see that season through, like I said earlier. And once the last game had happened, I think there was like a text message or a phone call like 2 days later from the guy who's the head of medical now, and they just wanted to make changes. And although I was disappointed it happened the way it happened, especially after everything I'd been through a couple of months previously, I was also quite relieved, because it meant I could be at home building that relationship and just trying to be a better dad with things. So I was sad to leave the way it happened, because I wanted to well, in a way we did go out on a high because we stayed up, but I wanted to have been able to have been there to go and say bye to everyone and to see everyone one last time, and rather than have to do it over the phone. And so that's the one thing I regret about leaving the way I did, just missing out and saying goodbye to some really good people.
The obvious thing would have been to set up a little kind of consultancy or something like that.
It would have been,
to use the skills you've honed over the last 2 decades. You don't go for the obvious, though, do you? Do you want to talk us through what the career path looks like now?
Honestly, I think I thought about doing just that. There's a salon just up the road, and I even went in and had a little word with them about setting up shop there, and I was doing it. I was about to set up shop and work privately, but then the second lockdown came into effect, and I thought there's no point trying to set up a business while all this is going on. And that second lockdown lasted about 6 months, and I thought the longer I wasn't doing it, the more I was thinking, do I actually want to do this anymore? Like, my wrists don't hurt, I can open jars now. I'm not tired all the time, although the COVID was still kicking me a little bit, long COVID, and I just didn't miss it enough to want to go and do it. And then because I'd done private work before with normal people. It's not me anymore. And then I thought, well, what do I do now? So I applied to be a postman about 17 times and got turned down for that. I didn't realise you needed to be so qualified to put a letter through a letterbox, but apparently you do. And it just escalated from there, really. And I always, growing up, whenever I watched TV and films, I was always looking at the people in the background and going, oh, I wonder how you get that gig. Yeah. I'd love to be that guy with a beer in the background, just sat there. Like, I bet, and you start looking and watching, I wonder how I can do that. And I was watching Ricky Gervais's Extras for like the third time. And I thought, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to have a look. So I started Googling about how you become an extra, or an SA as it's called now. And
what's SA mean?
A supporting artist.
Oh, right, okay.
That's a posh way of saying really extra. Good. Yeah,
very la-di-da.
Oh, very much so. And and then I just came across this website and this app where you could put yourself forward for certain jobs, but then when I would do those jobs, other extras or SAs would say, oh, where did you get this job from? And then they tell you about agencies, open up agencies. So I thought, well, I'm in Birmingham. It's still COVID times. But funnily enough, because you're in the entertainment industry, you're classed as a key worker. Right. So you can just go out and be a key worker. And you join other agencies. You're in Birmingham, which is the centre of the universe, as everyone knows. Everywhere you can get to in an hour and 45. So I go, right, I'll join an agency in Manchester, I'll join an agency in Leeds, I've joined one in Bristol, there's one in London, a couple around the Midlands, let's see what happens. And then you just get put forward for jobs like, we need a big hairy idiot. What are you like for these 4 days? And I'm like, yeah, I'm free, let's go. And you travel and you meet some great people and you can sit around all day and get paid for it and maybe get used for 30 seconds. I thought, this is really, really good. But it's not consistent, which is a shame. I think my problem is because I'm so unique facially, once they've seen you, they can't use you again.
Right.
People blend in a lot more than I do, so they get more days than I do. So I'm like, he's got 3 weeks, they're lucky. And then I get 2 days or something, So it's been great. It's been great. But again, looking at the way I do, people look at you and then go, actually, could you do this for me? Could you say this? Or could you look a little bit intimidating on this? And then it's escalated to the point where I ended up getting a proper agent, and then she ended up getting me loads of commercials, and it's just kind of snowballed from there, really. So I've gone from being bored on the sofa trying to figure out how to be that guy in the background to getting big parts in commercials and films. So it's been a strange old roller coaster, to be honest.
Do you think that this new challenge that you've kind of launched yourself into, is that, obviously it's helping you earn a living, but do you think that's replacing some of the kind of dressing room, the camaraderie of the cave?
Yeah, it can do. Yeah, most definitely, because you are put in a group that you don't know previously, and you have to get to know and get on with. Yeah. And so there is a lot of that camaraderie, which is very, very similar. I think the levels of banter are different. Because there's stuff you can say in football that you can't say in real life. Yeah. But there's a lot of togetherness in both worlds, and so it's nice to have that. It's nice to have that group mentality and that togetherness. But then saying that, I don't necessarily miss football, which is sad, because football has been like my whole life. But I don't miss it. I don't really watch it anymore either. I don't go to games. Like my cousins and my sister and my dad, they're all like, let's go Blackburn away. Come on, we got tickets. We'll go watch the Albion. I'm like, I don't want to. I want to stay here. I watch Jeff and his boys on the Saturday. I watch the scores because it's fine. So I don't really watch it anymore. I think it's because when you've done nearly 20 years and you've seen enough. Yeah.
Thank you for taking so long to speak to us.
Thanks for taking me on the old, giving everyone a history lesson. It was nice. It was just all those memories are really, really nice to bring up every now and again. So thanks for having me.
No, it's great. Nice to know that you're on the billboards as well, rather than those pampered, those pampered super massaged Premier League footballers. Isn't it nice to get a bit of the limelight?
Yeah, I know.
No, thank you. You've been watching Claret and Blue with me, Matt Kendrick, and our super guest, Big Al. And coming soon to a screen near you, I think, by all accounts. So thanks for your time, Al.
You're welcome, man.
Cheers,
you for
mate.
having me.